The election of 1896 marked the victory of Republican William McKinley, who was victorious over opponent William Jennings Bryan, who the Democrats and Populists had worked together to nominate. McKinley was elected largely due to his policy of new imperialism, and his victory marked the end of the Populist Party. However, the party's political agenda was later assumed by the major political parties during the Progressive Era, which lasted from 1900 to 1920. Under the Progressive Era, there were Presidents Teddy Roosevelt, William Howard Taft, and Woodrow Wilson, and the period was known for its reforms and reformers who worked to bring about massive social change to replace the corruption that was often exposed by members of the press known as muckrakers. Reformers during the time focused on environmentalism, shutting down monopolies, creating building codes to promote safety and health, and fixing and improving dangerous working conditions and unsanitary procedures. Teddy Roosevelt's Square Deal focused on the 3 C's: control of corporations, consumer protection, and conservation. And some of his best-known policies and legislation are the Pure Food and Drug Act, the Meat Inspection Act, trust busting, and breaking up monopolies and holding companies. Woodrow Wilson is best known for his implementation of the 16th through 19th Amendments. The 18th Amendment granted prohibition, which was a huge religious issue in the 1920s with groups like the Women's Christian Temperance Union, and the 19th Amendment granted women's suffrage. Wilson was also known for his policy of New Freedom, which lowered tariffs, reformed the banking system, and cracked down on trusts and unfair business advantages. Also, with his 14 points in the Treaty of Versailles, Wilson helped to end World War I and create the League of Nations. 1921 to 1923 marked the Republican era with Presidents Harding, Coolidge, and Hoover, where the government was decidedly pro-business and took new approaches to public policy. During this time, there was also a change in values from the more traditional values of self-denial and worth ethic to leisure and consumption. 1929 marked the stock market crash, after which FDR's New Deal from 1933 to 1945 helped America to start recovery after the Great Depression. Some of FDR's best-known programs are the Work Progress Administration, which provided employment and building of public works, as well as the Federal Emergency Relief Act, which gave money to states for relief programs. These programs were designed to include ethnic groups, African Americans, and the middle class. The New Deal also marked a shift to the Democratic Party. Other programs that FDR implemented are Social Security and welfare, which were implemented to help keep the Great Depression from happening again and to support the homeless and poor in the country. Truman's Fair Deal was a continuation of sorts of the New Deal and advocated expanding Social Security benefits, increasing minimum wage, and helping with public housing. After this period, the Democratic Party split into the States' Rights Party, which consisted of Dixiecrats, who opposed the civil rights plank in the Democratic platform, and the Progressive Party, composed of liberal Democrats who advocated for racial segregation, for the abolition of racial segregation. After World War II, the Democratic Party advocated for a big government role, and they were pro-civil rights. The Republican Party, however, was pro-business and against the civil rights movements. The 1960s marked a lot of political activism and was a critical time in America's political development. In 1960, JFK became president, and he was most well known for his "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country" speech. He was very well liked because he was relatable and a nice guy. During this time, groups such as the Freedom Riders, the Lunch Counter Sit-ins, and MLK, who was known for his peaceful protests and marches, were involved in civil rights movements. JFK supported the civil rights movements, though he was hesitant to actively become involved until African-American James Meredith wanted to enroll at the University of Mississippi, where JFK sent troops to help and also protected the Freedom Riders with troops. He was also known for his New Frontier policy, which advocated domestic social and economic reform, under which the Volunteer Peace Corps was founded, Social Security benefits were increased, as well as minimum wage. After Kennedy's assassination, Johnson became president and was well known for his Great Society and his war on poverty. Johnson implemented things such as the Economic Opportunity Act, Medicare, Medicaid, and the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. He also, however, initiated the war in Vietnam, which made him increasingly unpopular. In 1968, Nixon was elected and was most well known for opening relations with China, which was important for its resources and goods, and China was also a barrier between communist Russia and capitalist U.S. In 1972, the issue that got Nixon reelected was that he promised to end the Vietnam War, because previously groups like college students had been protesting the Vietnam War, and whereas at first their protests had been peaceful, they soon turned violent. Nixon appealed to the silent majority, those who did not express opinions because they were content with policies. Nixon was also known for being president while the Pentagon Papers were leaked. The Pentagon Papers detailed strategies and atrocities in dealing with the Vietnam War, and though they didn't say things directly about him, they greatly increased distrust in the government. He was also known for the Watergate scandal, which was a series of scandals that included a break-in at the Democratic Party offices at the Watergate Hotel and included bribery, phone tapping, and conspiracy, as well as illegal use of government agencies like the CIA and FBI, which led to Nixon's impeachment and resignation and more distrust in the government. During the 60s and 70s, other groups included the Black Power movement, under which the Black Panther Party emerged, and unlike earlier civil rights movements, they used violence to attain their goal of black justice. The time also marked the beginning of the LGBT movements with the Stonewall riots and led to the formation of gay rights groups such as the Gay Liberation Front and raised awareness and widespread support for these movements. During this time, the women's liberation movement was also popular and saw legislation such as the Equal Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act, and women gained more political power and freedom, and more women became elected to Congress. After Nixon's resignation, Ford became president and pardoned Nixon. In 1976, Carter became president and was well known for his Camp David Accords, which ended the Arab and Israeli dispute, as well as his failure to adequately address the Iran hostage crisis. In 1980, Reagan became president and appointed the first woman to the Supreme Court. Reagan was known for his policy of Reaganomics, which focused on reducing taxes, social spending, and government regulation, and increasing outlays for defense. During this time, the Democratic platform included a pro-choice movement and affirmative action, which was the use of racial quotas to balance the workforce. The Republican Party, however, under Reagan's New Right, was in opposition to the pro-choice movement and advocated for a stricter law against crime, drugs, pornography, and advocated for increased defense spending and tax cuts. After Carter, in 1988, George H.W. Bush became president and is most well known for the Gulf War and Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm, which expelled Saddam Hussein's army and Iraqi forces from Kuwait. In 1992, Bill Clinton became president and was most well known for his proposed new national health care system that offered universal coverage and cost control, but ultimately failed. He was also known for the North American Free Trade Agreement and his sex scandal. George W. Bush was president after, and he was most well known for the war on terrorism and his response to 9/11, after which he sent U.S. troops to topple the Taliban in Afghanistan and was known for his invasion of Iraq, which actually turned into a 4-year war because of insurgents. George W. Bush also created the Department of Homeland Security to help protect and prevent against future terrorist attacks, and he implemented tax cuts in an attempt to stimulate the post-9/11 economy. In 2008, Obama became the first black president and was known primarily for his health care and education reforms, the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, and his Student Aid and Fiscal Responsibility Act, which expanded federal Pell Grants and ended federally subsidized private loans.